What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Extreme Drummers podcast, episode 13. How are we all doing? Hope we're doing well. Keeping safe amidst all the madness that continues. Busy week this week for me, if anybody wants to know. We had our flooring replaced on the bottom floor of our house, which doesn't sound like a huge deal, right? But it really, basically we had to move all the furniture out of the way, and it made me realize how much stuff we had in all of that furniture that I'm talking about. So we had to clear all of it out, find a place to put it, and then move all the furniture. And then we couldn't live in the house for basically 2 days. So, bless my mum for putting up with us and the kids for a couple of days, going around there and basically just living there for a couple of days. So anyway, long story short, it's all done now. So it's chilled, it's relaxed, and we've got nice new floor, which is cool. Again, it's first world problems, isn't it? Especially considering what's going on in the world right now, as we just discussed. But anyway, how's everybody out there doing? I hope you're doing all right. Episode 13, big one this week. Can't quite believe that it happened, really, because for me, this guest is a really big deal. Huge inspiration on my drumming at various points in my life, and I think he's been a huge inspiration to basically a whole generation of drummers, and probably more. As we discussed in the podcast, he was kind of the first guy to really bring extreme metal to the especially drumming community. So anyway, Derek freaking Roddy is on the Extreme Drummers podcast this week. What honor and privilege, and it was a wicked chat. It was it was really interesting. It went in a lot of directions I wasn't really expecting, because the way I normally do this is I have notes, and the notes are just kind of like talking points things that I'm interested in knowing about the person, and they're only really there if I need them. Like normally, I just like to have a conversation, and I just press record as soon as the conversation starts. So anything could come out, and that's kind of what happened this time. There was a few things that I wanted to ask about, which I did ask about, but the rest of it was just kind of two people riffing backwards and forwards, and it's just really cool chat. A lot of interesting insights from Derek, a lot of interesting opinions, and a lot of it's just super interesting chats from a absolute extreme drumming legend. So we talk a lot about snakes, because he's a snake dude. Don't know if anybody knows that, but that's his business. He raises snakes. But and he also plays live drums. First time live drums have ever been played on the podcast, and unfortunately, it sounds like shit. Not his playing, obviously, of course, but the Zoom microphones, whatever was going on, just totally compressed it, and it sounds like absolute shit. I've just listened back to it, so that's a real shame. But c'est la vie, life goes on. But yeah, that's a shame. So if you're wondering what happens there in the middle when it just sounds like shit for a minute when he's playing drums, then that is Zoom's fault, not either of our faults. But yeah, anyway, really cool chat. Real honor for me to chat with him, and just very cool overall. So I really hope you enjoy it. Episode 13. Yes, let me know. Keep in touch on all the normal places. I'm going to plug the normal places. Instagram, at Extreme Drummers Podcast. Instagram, Dan Wilding Drum. Facebook, Dan Wilding Drum. And I think I'm gonna put this one up on YouTube as well. So not actual video. I'll speak about the video thing in a second. But so that'll be up on YouTube as well for anybody who wants to listen on YouTube, because the first 10 I did on YouTube, and then I got a bit lazy with 11 and 12, and now I'm going to be not quite so lazy on number 13, which is this one. But yes, last week, for anybody who missed it, I announced that I started a Patreon page, which is literally just patreon.com/Extreme Drummers Podcast. And first and foremost, massive shout out to everybody who's signed up already. You guys are a bunch of absolute freaking legends, and I look forward to the fun that we're going to keep having on there. But for anybody who doesn't know about it, or anybody who's interested, obviously head over to patreon.com/Extreme Drummers Podcast. But essentially, what you get is for a very reasonable fee, I like to think. You get to ask all the guests questions. You get to find out the guests in advance, ask them questions. You get to vote on which guests you want. You get to I've already forgotten everything that it involves. Oh, you get an extra weekly Patreon only podcast, which is kind of like a VIP thing where we all kind of well, that's the plan anyway. We've only done one so far, but we all talk about things we want to talk about drumming, talk about whatever the fuck. And yeah, so there's that. Also get merch discounts and all kinds of stuff. So basically it's very cool. It's a cool community. And also if I get enough Patreons, if this Patreon thing goes as well as I'd hope it to go, then my plan is to make this a full on freaking video extravaganza podcast. So nice camera, better microphone, all kinds of stuff. I'd freaking love to do this in person with some people. So, if it gets good, there could be scope for me, because I live relatively close to London. I live relatively close to Brighton. I live relatively close to a bunch of Southampton, all kinds of places. So places where bands go. So, yeah, if it goes well enough, and if we can all get together and make a cool little community, then I could physically do this in person and have a little setup. I could even turn my drum room into a little podcast studio, couldn't I? Anyway, yeah, so I'm obviously getting ahead of myself now. But yes, you see the plan. This is the plan. So if you're interested in joining the very cool Patreon community that we've already started, again, shout out to all the patrons, legends. Then head on over to patreon.com/Extreme Drummers Podcast. But otherwise, this podcast will always be free. I fucking hate adverts with a passion. And when those people will be like, but before we continue with the podcast, I just need to have a word from our sponsor. And then the sponsor has absolutely nothing to do with freaking anything that you're listening to. So that being said, made my peace with it. It happens. But I will never do that. And also, of course, it helps to keep the podcast weekly. Sorry, that was the main thing. Obviously, I want to do this weekly because I love doing it. So the Patreon helps to keep it weekly because it takes up a lot of time. So yes, I'm rambling. You just want to hear Derek Roddy. You're bored of my voice now. Anyway, love you guys. Thank you for still listening. I really hope you enjoy this one. This is a real amazing episode. Real pleasure. And let's get to it. Thanks so much. Hope you enjoy it. Keep in touch on all the normal platforms. And thanks again to the Patreons. Enjoy Derek Roddy, and I'll speak to you guys next week. All right, bye.
Got it.
That's a perfect start.
Yeah, man. Dan, how are you?
How are you, dude?
Good.
I'm well. We were just discussing the rain over here, which is not a surprise. I mean, I'm assuming you've been to the UK a few times in your many years of playing drums.
A few times, yes.
Yes. And fond memories mostly.
Oh yeah, totally.
For the most part.
Yeah, I mean, it's not typically the places; it's the people you're with that create the bad
true.
memories.
That's true. Maybe we'll get into some of that later on. No, cool, man. But yeah, so how's things been? And I'm really intrigued to see how you've been, especially over the last couple of years. And how's COVID treated you? Because I recently it was a while ago, spoke to Donald from Obituary, and he was saying that Florida generally kind of had a bit more of a life goes on mentality with this whole COVID thing. So I'm really interested. How have you been? How's it been in Florida? How's things? How are you?
Great, actually. It's kind of funny. I don't know how much you know about my actual business with the reptiles, the snakes more specifically.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it really seemed like people were bored, and they made a lot of money during the Trump years, and they wanted to spend it. on stuff that home. I also know a friend of mine. He has a drum store, and his internet business went through the roof just because people were going to be home, and then they were looking for something to do at home.
New hobbies or picking up old hobbies again.
Yeah, so it seemed to be sort of a good time for like the hobby industry in a whole. Even model airplanes and whatever, ship in a bottle building or whatever. All of that stuff had an increase. So the reptiles for me, some of the best years I've had in the last half decade, with all of this stuff. So
that's amazing.
It's been doing really well. So that allowed me time to do this a little more freely. So and like you said, Florida we shut down for like 2.5 months, maybe.
Wow.
And then after that,
incredible.
Well, when a lot of the data started coming out, just not about COVID, but viruses in general, people started educating themselves. And Florida is not a state that viruses like overall.
Oh, really?
Because of the vitamin D. The sun.
Of course. The outdoor living, a lot more outdoor living as well. Yeah.
So he kind of went that route, and we were having full-on band practice, 2-3 days a week for literally like close to 2 years. I mean, we were hammering it out. Yeah.
That's amazing. Is Florida relatively kind of sparsely populated as well? Because it's quite a big state, right?
Well, it depends on where you're at.
Anyway. Okay, yeah, I guess like anywhere.
Down here, in the 3 counties of Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami, we have the population of Australia.
Oh my God.
Which isn't a lot. I mean, maybe it's 25 million people or something like that. I don't know.
Still, for 3 cities in the surrounding area, that's quite a lot.
Right.
I mean, yeah, wow. Amazing.
So the only other big city you have is Tampa, which is West Coast Florida, about 4 hours away, north and west.
Yeah.
And Orlando, Disney, of course.
Yeah, everybody's been there.
Yeah. And then Jacksonville, which is up at the top of the state, which is more like the United States and less like its own country.
Yeah, its own little thing dangling off the end. Yeah.
Yeah. A little fallacy like hanging down here.
Yeah.
But it is.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so it was relative. Well, I don't want to say normal because I don't think it's been normal for anybody, whether there's been lockdowns or not. But compared to the rest of the states, I guess it was a little bit more normal for you than most.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, my traveling cut way back. I mean, I haven't been anywhere since October in 2019. So it's been a minute.
How do you feel about that? Do you miss the traveling? Is traveling one of the things you enjoy about the music, or was that a bit of a oh God, I got to travel again?
No, I mean, I always liked traveling. That was never the issue. It was just the mindless traveling that got to me after a while. Yeah. And with the drum companies, that doesn't happen. They put you up in good hotels and flights and all of that stuff. Yeah. Meals. It's not like touring.
Yeah, where you just it's sitting around waiting to wait even more, basically, isn't it? That's essentially touring.
You're waiting 22 hours for 2 hours.
Yeah, if you're lucky. Yeah, if you're a support band, it's like 40 minutes.
Well, I mean, just everything that goes into it.
True. Changeover. Yeah, true. Warming up, all that stuff. Yeah.
Load in, load out, all of that.
Yeah, exactly. So has the majority of your kind of travel and playing been more clinics and that kind of thing for the last few years?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing Nader Sadek, which was great for me because with all of the animals, it makes it hard to travel, because then there's a whole extra added expense of I have to hire somebody because my wife, when I'm gone a weekend or a week and a half, she can handle it. But when you start talking about weeks on end, then finding somebody I trust, and then the cost that goes into that, it just made it not really affordable for me to tour.
Yeah, sustainable. Absolutely.
Yeah. So especially for what the reptiles turned into for me over the years. So I have to kind of take it serious.
Especially over lockdown, as you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have to kind
and
of take
speaking about the reptiles, I'm assuming it's relatively time consuming. Obviously, it's your job, but I mean, on top of that, as a job, are the animals time consuming in themselves? I'm assuming it's a big thing, and you must have to know a lot.
Well, it would depend. Typically, reptiles like to be left alone.
Okay.
So, if you follow that principle, and if you just change water every other day, and if you're feeding every 9 days, let's say, or every week, let's say, and then cleaning and maintenance, it takes me 1 day a week to work through about 100 animals.
100. Wow. Is that how many you've got?
I have more, but that's all I have here.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's amazing. God.
It's fun. It's like music in a lot of ways, because the types of people, that you meet are
specific types of people. Yeah.
Well, no, it's like a very wide, like, you have like some of the richest people on earth that have these things and do this for a hobby. And then you have somebody who lives under a bridge.
Equally as interested.
So
wow,
it ends up being pretty crazy.
And they're all kind of linked by this interest in reptiles and animals. Wow.
Yeah, started like
that's amazing
as they were kids. Like me, my dad was into everything. I mean, we rescued every animal known to under God's creation. I swear to God. I mean, everything from ducks to flying squirrels. I mean, foxes, owls, you name it. I mean, so I grew up with all of this shit in my house. So
cool.
Yeah, that's where it came from.
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And how did you shift over specifically to reptiles? Was that accidental, or were you always kind of a little bit more intrigued by them?
I was like any 6 or 8 year old boy that grew up on some land. Just the reptiles were the interesting thing,
the coolest.
And insects, like spiders and stuff. But we had captured a black rat snake. We had taken it off of somebody's property. I think the guy was going to kill it, and it was this big, really nice snake. And she laid eggs when we had her. So we took the eggs, we incubated them, hatched all the babies, and we let her and all the babies go on a piece of property my dad had. And from then, I was like seeing life that old. I mean, these animals have been doing this shit for millions of years, man.
Yeah, way before us.
I mean, we've been dragging knuckles 70,000 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, to me, that's fascinating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And to see it, just every time it happens, it blows me away.
Yeah. And how did it morph from, I guess, passion into a fully fledged business? I'm guessing that's quite a long story. Obviously, you don't have to give us the whole thing, but was there a moment where you thought, right, I can do this?
I can wrap it up real quick.
Okay.
In high school, maybe a freshman, 9th grade, 10th grade, I had always had snakes. I was at a local reptile store, and there was a guy there that was dropping off albino boa constrictors. And these were like literally some of the first. I mean, they were like, this was in the late 80s. I think they were 25,000 a piece at that time. And the guy, and the guy that owned the reptile store wanted to see them. He obviously, nobody was going to come in and buy a $25,000 snake as a pet, right?
Just casually,
right. So, but he had brought them in because this guy wanted to see them. They were some of the first, within the first 5 litters of boas, albino boas ever hatched. So nobody had ever seen them. And this was before the internet,
Wow.
and you know.
Yeah, of course.
So I saw that, and I asked the guy. I was like, "Hey, I'd be interested in seeing your collection or whatever." Of course, he was like, "No, no kids coming over here seeing my stuff." Whatever.
Yeah.
But I started seeing him more frequently because we were buying rodents for our snakes from the same guy.
Yeah.
And I kept seeing him. He basically said to me one day, "Hey, if you want to clean cages, to come over here and learn some more about, the industry." I had no idea there was an industry.
Yeah.
Like, and it was
just like snakes. Yeah.
It was just starting. This guy was one of the first people into it, first generation of people that started having the reptile shows and reptile specific pet shops and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Wow. So right place, right time for you, really.
Yeah. So me and a buddy of mine, we went over there and we started cleaning cages and learning what we could. And then we started watching him, like, gathering eggs during season, which is like Easter time, Easter eggs. And we'd watch him hatch them. And I bought my first pair of animals from him, like investment animals.
Yeah.
Which were some emerald tree boas, the green ones that sit in the tree.
Yeah. Wow.
And
they were the first ones that you had for yourself.
The first ones.
Wow.
I mean, that same summer I bought a bunch of different species and stuff from him. But that's kind of how it got me. I saw that there was an industry. We started going to the National Reptile Show together.
Yeah.
And then, you're walking around and you're seeing snakes that are $25,000-$50,000. And you think a female can have 10 of those, and that's one female.
Yeah, that's true.
So, like,
that's true.
The math started going through my head, even all the way back then.
Yeah, of course.
But then what happened was all of the species, because everybody got it, it was a big industry. A lot of people got into it. So they bred these animals out of value because there were so many of them,
Yeah.
And there was only certain species that were ones that were either tough to crack, to keep alive, or to hatch their eggs, which is the case with animals that I keep.
Yeah.
Diet, all types of different other things. So that's what keeps the value up. And then you add in the morphs.
Okay.
Albino, leucistic, where they're all white, or they're xanthic, where they have no yellow, so they look like a black and white photo negative.
And they're even more. I guess that makes them more rare, and
makes them more rare, makes them more valuable. Yeah. It's like anything else.
Wow.
It's like supply and demand. It's like the less there are of something, the more valuable it's going to be.
Yeah. So that's your speciality now, is those kinds of reptiles. Is the harder to keep reptiles essentially, and the harder to find ones.
Yeah, black-headed pythons from Australia.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow, man, that's incredible. And is this something that you've done alongside your drumming, pretty much your whole drumming career as well?
Yeah.
Or I say music career because obviously you're not just a drummer, but your music career. And has it always been relatively sustainable with touring and and keeping it going, or did you have a period where you had to stop it? Or
there was when I first moved down here to join Malevolent, I sold most everything I had to come down here, all the reptiles included. Thankfully, I was able to get some of that stuff back in the later years because the guy I sold them to still had some of the things. But I had different species and different things back then. But my wife and I have been together for 23 years. So and she was kind of thank you. She always had an interest, but was kind of afraid of snakes her whole life. So when we first met, and I had a few snakes, and I would be gone for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and she was forced.
Yeah, and she's scared.
She says but she's a therapist, so she de-escalated herself, like a sensory thing, just by sitting there and watching an animal and. Like, now let me change the water bowl. Okay, it didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Okay, let me feed this thing. All right, that was fine. you know. So she
Wow.
eventually, and now she'll take care of 100 snakes when I'm gone.
Yeah, I was gonna say from that to 100 snakes. That's pretty good going.
Yeah, pretty funny, right?
Oh wow, wow, man, that's
So
amazing.
I'm
Yeah,
lucky.
and so
Yeah.
yeah, no, absolutely. So, and it's still, well, as you say, you can't go away so long now. I guess that's because you have so many animals. But obviously, you said you go away mainly for kind of clinics and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Was that a big learning process to switch from being guy in the band, drummer, to all of a sudden? Well, I guess it wasn't all of a sudden. It took a while, right? I assume it took some years to kind of get that clinic guy, kind of what's the word? Title.
Yeah.
But I get was it a big shift like mentally, and did you feel like you had to change your playing or anything? How was it going from band guy to clinic guy?
Yeah, good question. I had this idea of doing a book because my whole life, or my whole working career, let's say, from out of high school, has always been in a music store or a drum shop.
Mm.
So being at the last shop that I was at was kind of like a world famous drum shop, Resurrection Drums, here in South Florida.
Okay, yeah.
They had a big teaching staff.
Mm.
And extreme metal in the early 2000s, 2001, 2002, 3, the time that I joined Hate Eternal, it was starting to, like, they were starting to get students coming in asking about blast beats. So by proxy, these guys, who some of them taught at the local universities and music schools and stuff, who were teaching part-time there, like, Derek, what's a blast beat? I know you do this stuff. Can you write it down for me? And I just had teacher after teacher after teacher, like people outside of metal, asking about it. During that time period, I was also going to a lot of the NAMM shows.
Yeah.
And it was weird. Like, a lot of the people in the companies, they didn't really know me as a drummer that was touring and playing in bands. In fact, when I was in Hate Eternal and Malevolent and Divine Empire and all these other bands, none of these companies would give me the time of day.
Well, I guess back then death metal wasn't kind of.
Well, they told me straight up they did not want their company associated with it. They told me straight up. The artwork, the lyrical content, they told me straight. I had presidents of companies tell me that. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Not knowing, they were thinking that I worked for Sonar or that I worked for Sabian, because at the time I was playing Sonar and Sabian, and I was there.
Yeah.
Not as an artist, but as an employee, basically. Like, some of my friends were there, and they brought me there, and and then we started talking about this extreme metal stuff, and they were like, "Well, wait a minute, you're a player." And by this time, I had left Hate Eternal, right?
Okay.
It was like the next year. A lot of my videos on YouTube started getting crazy. So there was a few of them that had 1 million hits, and so they.
I guess you had the website and the forum and stuff.
Yeah,
at that point.
Yeah, I did.
Right. Yeah.
And they saw that, I think, as like, wow, a lot of people are seeing this guy. So immediately companies were like, but I was one of the first drummers. I mean, I was definitely one of the first extreme metal drummers that was videotaping themselves and putting it online. Like, absolutely. That was like, these 100%. Guys, I remember even asking Steve and Pete and all these guys back in the day, let me videotape you just for my own. Like, I just want to, no, man, no, absolutely point, no way.
Wow.
And Pete used to hide himself.
Yeah.
Like, so people, I mean,
ever,
yeah, with monitors and road cases and stuff.
Yeah.
And I know guys that do that still to this day.
Yeah. Well, I guess traditionally as a drummer, you kind of don't want to be at the front, right? A lot of people choose the drums because it's a bit further back.
Yeah, maybe. But I think a lot of people too, when they went back and watched themselves, they really didn't like what they saw.
Maybe it's that as well. Yeah.
And me, I didn't give a shit. I mean, like, I grew up knowing I was playing really extreme stuff, and I knew that I was a human. But I also grew up in a recording studio, so I understood things that maybe a lot of other drummers didn't understand. You know, like that video I put up this week about grip and changing your sound based off of grip.
That.
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I learned that back in high school, in marching band actually, because there is a technique to get these really staccato, you know, unison hits. You know, where they tell you to tighten your grip so you can get this. So, like, this was something that I was approaching even then. You know, so it made sense to me. And then growing up recording myself, I wasn't afraid of it. You know.
Yeah, and what was the growing up in the recording studio? What was that situation? Did you have one at home, or did you have friends or something, or
both? My dad,
wow,
in the 80s had a country song on Billboard.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it was always something like my whole family. You've probably known this from seeing other stuff or whatever if you have, but my whole family is very musical and. So everybody plays.
I didn't know about the Billboard thing though. That's amazing.
Yeah, so he wrote a song, wanted to sell it to another artist, and the producer that did it wouldn't let him sell it. It's like, dude, we need to get this out there. You know?
Yeah.
And I learned back then about music because my dad was like, I'm not going to quit doing real estate to do music because there's no money in it. And that was 1982, you know, like.
Yeah. And look at us now.
Yeah. Lars was right.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That T-shirt that you're wearing in that it's the band whore video. Spot on, dude. Spot on.
A friend of mine made me that because he got tired of hearing me bitch about it, telling everybody Lars was right.
Yeah. I mean, it's true though. You know, no one listened. They bitched about him. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. So growing up in that environment, I guess as you say, you had a head start on a lot of people.
Yeah, so
a lot of people
I grew up in that.
Yeah, sorry.
That thing with him in the studio watching that, and then a friend of mine got a 4-track, like not shortly after that. I mean, they were expensive, man. They were like $800 in 1987.
Wow! Oh my god!
And he saved like all of his money mowing lawns and shit. You know, he bought incredible. A 4-track. Brought it over to my place, realized we needed microphones.
Oh, shit. Extra money.
So, yeah, we called like all of our buddies in the neighborhood, like, hey, you got any mics? So, yeah, we were. And then another friend of mine eventually introduced me to a guy that he was kind of into the whole, he wasn't necessarily a player, but he was into the audio side of it. And he was the first guy in town outside of a professional place that had like a decent console, and he brought a tape machine. All of that, you know. So my band at the time, we were kind of like his test dummies. So we were always setting up drums and recording and mic angles.
That's amazing. And again, in those days, to have that ability, I guess, was quite rare.
Yeah, and we built probably 2 or 3 studios from the ground up together. And he eventually was Sound Lab, Bob Moore, who recorded all the Nile stuff, early Nile stuff at least.
Yeah.
That's the same guy.
Oh, wow. That's the same guy. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Wow. So it all came kind of full circle.
Yeah, sure did.
Ways.
Yep.
That's amazing. Wow, man. Cool. Oh, wow. So, yeah, you really, really got a head start. And because I was going to talk to you about that video. It's really, really interesting because I see you as you know, as you said, one of the definitely one of the pioneers for bringing extreme metal to, I guess the mainstream, really, in a lot of ways. As you say, I'd say you were the first,
mainstream drumming community, maybe.
Yeah, I guess so.
Not internationally,
but it's like
that would have been Slipknot.
Yeah,
Joey.
True. I guess they were one of the first. R.I.P. They were one of the first kind of bands in the top 10 to do blast beats, I guess, right? But it's really interesting because I don't know whether it's because of it, you know, I guess it's a different generation of modern drummers, but your approach to extreme drumming is so much more. I feel like it's so much more, and correct me if I'm getting this wrong, so much more natural and more kind of I I'm trying to think of the right words, individual. Whereas I feel like there's a lot of stuff out there today which is like, you have to do this, and it has to be this technique, and it has to be, you have to do this exact thing, otherwise you're never going to be able to play speed, or you're never going to do this. Whereas to me, you've always been the kind of guy that's been like, find your own thing, but these things are going to help you get there, if you know what I mean. I don't know if I'm wrong or right about that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a certain, I don't want to say that anybody's doing anything wrong, but
obviously there are things that will cause pain or something if you keep doing that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not listening to your body.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
like the whole idea that, like, somebody made a comment the other day. It's like, wouldn't playing that way, wouldn't it, consume more energy? Wouldn't it be more energy efficient to do it this way? And I'm thinking to myself, then why are you trying to take energy out of metal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. That's more of the approach that I'm
against.
Yeah, I mean, some of these guys, like, listening to it, it's impressive as shit, like when you see it, and then watching it live, it's like watching paint dry.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because I was never given a chance as a listener to actually hear who this person is on their instrument.
Yeah.
Like when you bury it with sound replacing and all of this stuff, and then like you listen to it and you learn these songs as a fan, let's say, just outside of being a drummer, but as a fan, you're listening to this, and then you go live, and 9 times out of 10, it's not even the dude that recorded the record.
Yeah, because it's metal.
And it's like it's not what's represented.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also there's you saying about sound replacing and stuff. I feel like again, I don't know if I'm just being an old man complaining, but
get off my lawn.
Shaking my fist at a cloud. But like the fact that kind of if dynamics have disappeared from metal as well is that's something that, and from drumming again as well.
That's a better term.
Drumming.
The dynamics
from drumming, metal drumming. Yeah,
the dynamics in metal are there. Like look at a band like Flesh God or Septic, with like the orchestra and whatever other band you want to insert name
musical
here.
Dynamics. Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't. Yeah, like with all the sound replacing, when I'm hearing the same snare hit or the same snare backbeat, because a lot of these new programs are getting pretty good where they're only replacing the actual backbeat itself and leaving everything else. And I understand it. You know what I mean? As an engineer,
same. Absolutely.
I just recently had an experience, and it's happening. I'd say recently had an experience, but more recently are having these experiences of engineers not knowing what to do with cymbal bleed. And I make a thing with everybody who hires me, no sound replacing.
Yeah. Good.
Scott Burns had to work with what he had to work with. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Jim Morris, Rick Rubin, all these guys, Eddie Kramer, all the way down the line, these guys had to work with what they were given. And a lot of these new engineers, when they have to work with what they're given, they don't know what to do.
Yeah, they resort to sound replacing, triggering everything.
Right, because they can't get the isolation. They're used to having this, like, I need that tom not to have any of that hi-hat or any of that splash or snare or anything in it. And if it's not like that,
like Superior Drummer or something.
Right. And you can do that even with the kit if you're sound replacing everything. I just feel like, why did you ask me to record?
Yeah, I know.
If you're gonna take me out of it completely, he even asked me. There was a couple of double bass things that were like flammy,
Yeah.
And he asked me, he was like, "Dude, do you want me to fix those?" I was no, and he was astounded.
Yeah.
That I said no, leave it. I mean, I'm a freaking human. You know,
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
I'm
And
trying
it
to
should be
represent what I do to
as best as
100% as best as possible. Right.
Mm,
You know?
yeah, and that's the thing again. And I understand everybody, and I guess it's a more modern sound, I guess. But everybody wants to be as tight as they can be. The thing that I feel that is a negative is the fact that it kind of sets unrealistic expectations for everyone, not just for drummers, for guitar players, for everybody. They feel like they have to live up to this literally unbelievably perfect thing that isn't actually real anyway.
Right.
And
But
I feel like that's where the problem lies.
it has really quickly made a whole generation of drummers a lot better.
That is true. That is also true.
Because they're trying to replicate that.
They're trying to be impossible. Yeah.
Like I had to figure all of
Yeah.
that shit out on my own. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like snare
what I
drum
was gonna say.
volumes and between
Yeah.
playing backbeat and playing blast and knowing where to play
There was no
lighter and
YouTube
where to play
videos.
harder and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, sound
Yeah,
replace
and,
it, and that's all of that's done now.
And who was it? Was there one person, a handful of people?
Pete.
Who was it specifically for you? I was going to say. I mean,
In metal,
I assumed
Pete.
it would have been. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Was he the holy grail for you completely?
Yeah, I mean, as far as holy shit, and I'm not even talking about the recordings. I mean, the recordings are crazy enough as they are for the time, anyway. But watching him live and actually play it,
yeah,
and it's sounding, at least for the first few records up until because Covenant, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like they always, the band itself always kind of sounded different. I don't know if you saw them back in the day, but like through Altars of Madness, and then they changed their sound for Blessed Are the Sick.
Yeah.
And then the same thing, they kind of went back to like an Altars of Madness thing for Covenant, more of a wet sound as opposed to that dry thing they had going on. And they sounded like that as a band.
That dry, flappy sound.
Yeah. And then Pete, obviously he started triggering everything for consistency, but he was always the most consistent out of all the guys. I mean, like, I remember seeing him when he was mic'd. Man.
The rolls around the kit as well.
Yeah. And I pay attention to that stuff. I remember him being mic'd and what it sounded like. Like, man, this guy is super consistent. Yeah. And because I grew up in a studio recording myself playing similar kind of music.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was like, man, this dude.
Hard that was.
Yeah, he's like this much better than everybody. And he always was.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Not that I didn't. I mean, Steve Mediaside, one of my favorite drummers, but for a different reason. Like his cymbal melodies.
Yeah.
Like if you listen, like really listen to Steve. It's subtle.
Yeah. Intricate.
But it's absolutely. Like it's very cool what he does, with the accents and the ride patterns, like staying consistent and really good at that kind of stuff. Lee, cool. Monstrosity.
Oh yeah, of course.
He was like the Tommy Lee of the extreme metal, death metal. You know what I mean? The cymbal chokes.
Yeah.
He had. Out of all the guys at the time, he probably had the most technique. Like if you go back and watch videos.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay. Watch him in the More Sound stuff, or not More Sound, when he was recording at Criteria down here. Look at some of that stuff and just how easy it looks for him, But still having balls.
Yeah, and some power and dynamics and as we were saying, but and as we were saying, there was no blueprint back then for any of this, for blast beats, and
these guys said it.
Discussed that kind of started with you, I'd say, the quote unquote the blueprint, I would say, and
well, I think my blueprint I left was endurance. That's what I brought to the table intentionally.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing Human for the first time and getting like really bent out of shape because I grew up with all of the same influences. So if I was to play you stuff that I recorded back then, Sean and I were on the same page because we were like very influenced by Holdsworth and Gary Husband and Benny and
interesting.
Billy Cobham. And so all of that stuff was leaked over into my playing. And then when I heard that and then discovered Cynic, I was like, man, crap. It's like, no, everybody's going to look at me as like being this copycat, Look, and that was very important to me. And even then, I remember thinking like, man, I developed myself up to a point to where I was introducing this kind of stuff in my playing. I didn't really hear anybody else doing it. And then I was heartbroken because of that. So I just went the other way. I said, all right, well, nothing but double bass and blast.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I mean, it seemed to work out for you. So
yeah.
But that was a real intentional shift, was it?
It was
when that happened.
Yeah, very intentional.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's really interesting what you say, because I wasn't around obviously in the early days of Carcass, but Bill and Jeff told me from Carcass, they've said that, being the same as another band or doing the same thing as another band was completely off the table back then.
Oh yeah.
Like if
you couldn't,
if you were ripping people off, it was like the worst thing you could do. Whereas again, now that's very different. It's almost the opposite.
Yeah, but there wasn't as much saturation.
That's true. There
was a very limited gene pool, but everybody sounded different.
Yeah, which is amazing. It's really amazing. And as you said, the fact that you made that conscious decision to be, well, I could go down this route, but he's already doing it, so I'm gonna go down my own route,
right?
For the sake of me, I guess, and your own artistic kind of integrity, as it were.
And look, man, I was always more of a fan of like that early earache stuff, more so than anything, as far as extreme metal. Symphonies to Sickness included. That was a major influence on me early, more so than any of the other records. I mean, I know that like Heartwork and all that stuff like blew them up or whatever, but to me, when I think of Carcass, I go back to those first two records, man. Like, that's cool, man. Greek and Symphonies. Like, for me, that's Carcass. That stuff's got to be fun really to play, bro.
It's funny because learning it was quite tough, because obviously the production is muddy in certain places.
I love it.
So I had to. Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. So do I. So I had to get in touch with Ken, and I had to ask Ken some questions and various things to figure out how to do things here and there. But yeah, that's still to this day probably some of the most fun
it's
songs to play. Definitely. And also because when I first joined the band, I was I don't know why I'm embarrassed to say it, but I was a 2-foot blaster, and Jeff and Bill were like, no. If you're gonna play if you're gonna play in Carcass, you play with 1 foot. So you need to learn quick to play. So I was like, shit, okay, right. I need to sit down for hours and figure this out with 1 foot. So now I can't play with 2 feet.
Oh yeah, isn't that funny how that happens?
So I know, now I'm the other way. So it's kind of, and I guess are you mostly 1 foot?
Always, yeah. I do. I can't even do it. I didn't know it existed until I moved down to play with Malevolent. I saw Crazy Larry doing it. Like I said, all these drummers would hide themselves.
Yeah, true. There was no videos. No one was talking about it.
But it was the European drummers that were the ones doing it. All the American drummers, everyone that I know of, were 1 foot.
Wow.
So, but I saw Crazy Larry from Hate Plow the very day I came down to audition for Malevolent. I saw him doing that, and I was like, what the hell are you doing?
What even is that?
He's like, yeah, dude, fucking all the fast drummers do it. Like all the Euro drummers. They call it the Euro blast. Cigarette hanging out of his mouth, all bald, crazy looking. I miss that dude. He was a killer drummer.
Yeah, no, I don't really know much about him, if I'm honest. I know the band, but
he played on the first Hate Plow record, and then he died in a house fire.
Oh, shit. Wow.
Brutal dude, though. But,
wow, God.
Yeah, great
So
drummer.
he was the first 2-foot blaster that you ever saw?
That I ever saw. And then, he was like, yeah, Cole Ross does it. And I had just replaced Cole Ross, but I had never seen, Malevolent with Dave.
Yeah.
Being in South Carolina, we didn't really see a whole lot of people unless I went to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And then I had to hear about it.
Yeah.
You know, no internet, no like,
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? And that's like and again, I guess moving on to your kind of slightly later career, I mentioned obviously I want to talk about the forum because for a lot of my generation and younger and whatever, the forum was kind of, oh man, it was like the ultimate extreme metal community. I still speak to people regularly about the forum, and
And I remember all you guys from back then, dude. I mean, like,
oh, that's so cool, man.
We had a
That's
lot
so
of fun.
Cool. Yeah, totally, and it was a real like. Did you ever expect it to become what it was? Was it ever an intention? Like, was it an accidental thing?
I was new to it.
Up?
You know, and there was years, if you remember, that I would put videos up saying that I didn't have a MySpace or a Facebook or any of that to just go to my website. But I had people like impersonating me and putting up pages and whatever. But and, that kind of goes back to what you asked earlier about, the transition between being that band drummer and doing the clinic thing. I just realized that there was such amount of non-metal drummers joining that forum towards like after I had quit with Hate Eternal, and after those videos started coming out and being circulated, like Pearl Drummers Forum and the day. Like they had like almost 100,000 members or something. Drummer World. I had like 55,000 or something at the time. But these guys, so my stuff would make it there.
Though. That seems really big, especially for an extreme metal forum. That seems huge.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it started as that, but I think that people weren't, at least from the company standpoint, they weren't afraid of me. Like I was never really much of the metal guy, like I don't really own any metal shirts and shit, like here I have a few, from tours and stuff, but
of course,
stuff that I play with, but I've never really kind of been that guy. And I would watch when the NAMM shows started to become really popular. I started seeing guys from other bands, from other death metal bands coming, and like looking like they just rolled off somebody's couch. You know what I mean? Like trying to go get an endorsement. Like so that's something.
To the guys in the suits.
That's something that I understood early on, I think as well, and that gave me an advantage being at these shows because, like these guys, they weren't afraid of me. They got to know me, and then
even though you were playing in these
horrible,
quote unquote bands,
right. And then after I was out of the bands and looking to do more of industry and work with companies because of my retail knowledge. I mean, I can still tell you model numbers for cymbal stands from like 15 different manufacturers. You know what I mean? Like,
wow.
My retail knowledge is pretty good. So I kind of fit in at all these companies because I can speak their language and stuff,
Yeah, absolutely.
So it started for there. So that transition was pretty easy. But what was fucked up about that is I actually started playing to more people. I mean,
that says everything, right?
It was just weird. You would figure.
Wow. Just for yourself, you were playing in front of more people.
Well, between that and drum festivals.
Amazing. Yeah, of course,
like once I played Modern Drummer, and then the PASIC fest, shortly after that.
The two big ones,
PASIC's big. I mean, I think the room probably had 4,500 people in it when I played.
Ooh. Wow. Like all seated too, so it must be a big room.
It's it's huge, like conference area.
That's amazing.
And then but obviously it's not just people from the outside, like watchers. There's also industry people, marching bands, like all the things that go into PASIC. It's just like a full-on NAMM show too. All the retailers.
Oh, outside of the performances as well, is it? Like
I
see. Interesting. Wow, it's a proper event.
Yeah, it used to be when they were doing it in Austin for like 5 or 10 years or so.
Yeah, wow. And was it a big kind of transition for you playing wise? Because there's that whole thing about being, I guess, protected with your band members in a lot of ways. You know, you're on stage together, and
Yeah.
if one person messes up, it's not the end of the world. Whereas when it's just you, like, was that a big thing to kind of get used to when you first did your first one? Were you kind of shitting yourself, or were you
Not
okay?
really. No,
Wow, amazing.
Modern Drummer was a different story.
Yeah.
And I had done a lot of other things. I mean, I had the Ultimate Drummers Weekend in Australia. That's like one of the biggest in the world. Just a lot of people don't know about it.
Yeah,
And
I've
I had
heard of
done
it, but I didn't
that.
realize it was that big.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like a mini
Mm.
NAMM show, like drum industry, all the magazines, like everybody goes there, all the vendors and people are playing, like biggest drummers from everywhere, you know. So I did a whole tour of Australia a couple of different times, clinic stuff. I got to know Frank Corniola at Drum Tech there, just through the internet and whatnot, and through Virgil Donati, actually.
Oh wow!
Virgil
Cool.
introduced me to him at one of the NAMM shows.
That's,
and he was like,
so
man,
cool.
I'd love to get you over. So came over and did that with him. So I was used to clinics and stores, product demonstrations, more or less. Cause like I said, like a lot of these companies used me. Sonar used me for years in the retail market before like Modern Drummer Festival and all that. Even during the time I was in Hate Eternal and things, you know.
Wow. So it was just kind of an extension of stuff you'd already been doing anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, sort of. Modern Drummer, I thought I was going to pass out. I literally, I don't remember being on stage, and not because I was nervous, but just like fuck, man, this is Modern Drummer Festival. Like,
yeah, it's the big one, dude.
How did I even end up here?
Playing blast beats as well.
You
must have been. Were you the first? You must have been the first drummer on a Modern Drummer Festival to play
Extreme
blast
metal
beat,
drummer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Wow, what achievement.
I mean, Charlie had played it, Lombardo had done it, you know, but
yeah,
to have like a full on extreme metal.
Yeah.
I think that was the first guy.
Yeah, well, because I similar to you, I worked in drum shops my entire life, and pretty much until I joined Carcass, really, around 12 years ago, or however long it was. But you know, it's like you go on tour and then you come home, you got to have a job. There's only a handful of places that will take you. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you know, I vividly remember it because I was the only extreme metal guy in the shop, and there were jazz guys, funk guys, rock guys, and then all of a sudden, Derek Roddy comes along, and they're like, "Oh, who's this guy? And what does he do? I've never heard of him." And then they're like, "Oh, this is the kind of stuff you do, man. Like, oh wow, yeah, it's really impressive." But it was kind of it. I felt like you totally legitimized extreme metal drumming, from my perspective, with all these other people, because they were like, it's just noise. You're not really doing anything.
Yeah.
So it was really amazing. It was a real. I feel like it was a real turning point, kind of. Again, for the drumming community, maybe.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for the mainstream, but
well, I kind of set out to do that. I mean, when all those guys started coming to me about, you know, just notate it for me so I know what the hell I'm talking about. And I did that like 4 times a week for a while, and then I just started compiling all of that. And ironically, a friend of mine who worked at Warner Brothers, Horacio Hernandez, had introduced me to him. And at the time, they had broken off from Warner Brothers, and they were starting their own publishing company, music publishing company. And they had Johnny Rabb doing something, and then Ray asked me at the time. He said, "Hey, you're that extreme metal guy on YouTube, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And so we actually became pretty good friends. But he eventually, you know, about 6 months after that, said, like, "Look, would you be interested in doing a book?" Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, like let's do it because it's needed. I kept hearing that, you know, Pete was going to do one. I kept hearing that, you know, all these guys, Flo was going to do one. I kept hearing all this stuff, and then like none of it was happening. And then I would talk to some of the guys, and they were like, "Man, you know, just these companies just don't seem to want to get behind it." You know, come back to what I told you earlier. You know, that these companies didn't want to be associated with that. And I guess because I wasn't in a band,
Yeah.
And when I finally
again,
did put together Serpents Rise, it was very neutral in the artwork and no lyrics, nobody screaming at you.
No dead bodies anywhere.
Yeah. So I could go and I could play extreme metal and not have these people feel like they're being yelled at with vocals. Or even if they went and they got checked it out, they were like, oh wow, you know, I can grasp this.
Yeah.
I got so sick of hearing, man, I love the music, I just can't stand the vocals.
Oh, dude, that's just the classic, isn't it?
Got tired of hearing that, you know?
Yeah, it's the old. Yeah, so you're like, okay, fine, I'll get rid of the vocals. Then you got no excuse.
Right. No excuse at that point.
Yeah. And was Serpents Rise kind of a kind of answer to being, because it's all you, right? It's you play everything. Is that correct?
I didn't
for the most
want it to start out that way, but
okay.
After going through like 85 different lineup changes trying to find guys that would stick it out. Yeah. I just figured, well, by the time I do this, I can just do it myself.
Yeah. And was the intention for it to be, you know, for it to be a fully fledged band, or was there a bit of, it was, okay. But it just ended up working out well for the clinic thing, obviously, as you say, because it was purely musical and you could play literally whatever you wanted without having to answer to a guitar player who didn't want you to do that or whatever.
Yeah. Well, the idea is that if I ever got asked by the companies to do Modern Drummer Fest or Drummer Live or UK Drum Show or whatever, I would actually have a band to play with. That was the idea.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And I showed so many guitar players all of these songs just to have them dip out to go play with Monstrosity or Cradle of Filth or whoever.
Yeah.
You know, and they would basically use my name as a stepping stone to get to another band that was doing what they wanted to do, which was tour. And I didn't really care about that. You know?
Yeah. Was there a point where you, as I guess when you started getting more of this clinic work and stuff, was there a point where you felt kind of done with the traditional touring, or did you still want to do that, but there wasn't the opportunities, or were you just fed up?
You know, I did, and I got asked a lot by a lot of bands. I mean, every band that needed a drummer, you know, hit me up between those years. But the issue was just being able to afford to do it as an adult.
And as you say, with the business as well.
I mean, at 20 years old, it's one thing. You know, you come home with 15 or 20 grand in your pocket a year from touring, and that's doable. Not so doable at 40.
Absolutely.
You know,
you've got a mortgage and, you know, things, responsibilities. It gets. I keep telling my kids this because my oldest son always says, "Oh, Daddy, when am I going to be older?" And I just keep saying, the older you get, the less fun it gets. So just enjoy being young.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love being an adult in a lot of ways, but you know.
Well, I mean, it can be, but if you should take the right steps to ensure that doesn't happen. You know, like
absolutely.
Look, man. You know, I know guys that at 45 years old said, "Screw it, enough." Went back to college, and in 4 years, we're making 300 grand a year.
Yeah,
you know, like
absolutely. You're never too old. Absolutely.
No.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And also, I like, again, sorry to take it back to Carcass, but I found them really inspiring with when they did the reunion, because that was 2008, 2009, and they were already deep into their 40s. And they were like, fuck it, let's just give it another go. They had no idea if anyone would care.
Yeah.
And now it's, 13 years on, or no, longer than that, however many years on, and still going. So, as you say, you just don't know what's around the corner. And
exactly.
You're never too old to, especially with the internet now, man. There's so many opportunities.
Yeah.
To do things.
Well, I mean, real life things, opportunities are not so much there, and that's the thing that sucks about what the music industry has become. Going back to that shirt, Lars was right.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about a real career. I'm not talking about going out as a hired hand for $500 or $1,500 a week, whatever, you know, for however many weeks a year, and coming back and then got to worry about, you know, what happens if COVID happens again. You know, I'm talking about a real career.
Yeah.
You know,
and
that doesn't
exist.
Wonder
if that's going to be possible. Yeah,
it doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
I mean, you talk to anybody that lived through it. You know, like going back to Vinny Colaiuta. If you haven't seen that interview with him and Dom Familaro, watch it, because he breaks it down very simply that music is just no longer commerce. It's not.
Yeah.
That $1,000 that everybody used to spend on music per year now goes to this.
Yeah.
This is that $1,000.
Yeah.
And the people of the world have spoken that music is only worth X amount of dollars in a subscription per month.
Yeah, and they're not.
That's what they've decided. Because of the stupidity of our industry.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I was speaking to I won't name any names, but I was speaking to we were having a bit of a debate about Spotify, and you know, streaming services in general. He was a manager, a music manager, band manager, manages multiple bands, but and you know, we were saying that as much as it fucking sucks, you know, in a lot of ways the musicians got themselves into this mess.
Sure did.
You know, you can't. You can blame these companies and you can blame the public, but at the end of the day, there was countless ways where the musicians could have helped.
And people need to inform themselves where these guys are making their money. These guys, they're not making their money off your stupid music.
Yeah.
You gave that shit to them for free.
They don't care about the music.
Where they make their money is when you click, I agree. That's where 99.5% of their profit comes from. Does not come from people buying your music. They are selling your information, and that's what makes these people billionaires. It has nothing to do with your crappy music.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's true. And music is just the kind of the little doorway that lets all these advertisers in.
Check this out.
Know more about you.
All right, so Sirius Radio, right?
Yeah.
They have a station called Ozzy's Boneyard, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, 3 times an hour, they play Ozzy Osbourne, right? Yeah. Name a new song. A new Ozzy Osbourne
song. A new Ozzy song
that you hear.
On
Spotify or on Sirius.
I couldn't tell you one.
You know why? Because they don't play any. Do you know why?
Wow.
Because it's worthless.
I don't know why.
It's worthless.
Yeah.
That's why. What is worth money is the $1 million catalog that has Crazy Babies and Crazy Train and you know, and all that other shit that
Mr.
you hear
Crowley and all that stuff
3 times an hour.
Yeah. Well, it's like I only was made aware of this recently. I can't believe I didn't know this, but these massive companies, not always record companies, but these multi-million-dollar companies are buying up back catalogs of all these artists. They're giving these legacy artists, Neil Young and all these people, giving them multi-million-dollar payouts.
Right.
Which, you know, to the older artist, they're probably
and that's why you only hear that music.
Exactly, but they get everything from that entire back catalog because they're just, you know, that's what the older generation want to hear. They'll push it on the younger generation. It's all a business, and as you say, there's so much music now as well that it's kind of to get through the noise. It's almost impossible. And I guess as you were saying, the positive is, I guess, that it's easier to make music and you can get your music out there easier. But the massive negative is there's so much more music.
And it's not worth anything. So
yeah.
It doesn't matter how much of it you put out there.
It's like the snakes, as you were saying earlier, when they were overbreeding them or they were breeding them out of value. You know, it's exactly the same thing.
And I'm watching guys do that too. Like I watched it during the COVID. You know, every musician I know that relies on touring complaining that they're not making any money, but they're on social media every day giving away content for free.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Exactly.
And like I said, we wonder why we're here.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. It's because everyone's, and again, we're not bitching on anybody, but think about this. Here's how easy it is to make money in music, right? In today's technology. Let's take a band like Slipknot, right? Mm. How many fans do you think they could generate on social media, like on a website platform or social, like Facebook or Instagram? Just by themselves.
Like, how many followers do they have on Instagram? Slipknot, do we know?
It's got to be it's got to be over 1 million, I would assume.
Okay,
easily.
So let's just assume. Let's just assume 250,000 of those million people, right, are true fans. Right. So let's just say 25%. Let's just say, or let's even just say 100,000. Say 100,000 people are true fans. Okay, anything Slipknot does, they're going to be a part of it. All right. Slipknot starts a website, a live streaming site, and they do a campaign that says, we need you, our fans, to help us write our new release. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a subscription-based website for $1 a month. And you'll get to come in and you'll get to watch us write and record our new release, song, album, whatever. We'll post up a chat. We'll be asking you guys questions. Do you like this riff? You think we should go from here to there? And you make your fans a part of it. Dude, these guys could be generating hundreds of $1,000s a month.
Yeah.
And nobody is taking advantage of it in that way, because what they're doing is they're thinking they're going to do one show and they're going to charge people $50 to $100 to watch it on their TV. You're out of your mind. That's not happening.
Absolutely.
That's why none of this stuff has been successful for people.
Yeah, well, you noticed that in especially the first year of lockdown, everybody was doing these live stream gigs, and then very quickly it all just tailed off.
Yeah, because it cost more than they were making.
Absolutely.
I watched every single band that I know go from like on a stage right to a rehearsal room when they realized how much that shit cost. It cost us how much to do that?
Let's just get some GoPros. It'll be fine.
Exactly. But that is what people want.
Yeah.
They want to see what's on the wall in your rehearsal room.
Yeah, and interestingly, I don't know if you know, there's a band. I'm not a fan of their music, but there's a band in the UK called While She Sleeps, and they've literally done what you just described. They got out of their record contract. They don't have a management. They don't have a booking agent. They do everything through Patreon now.
Right.
And they've got upwards of 10 or 11,000 Patreons per month.
Yeah.
Paying a minimum of £1. So even if everybody pays £1, for about, they're not a huge band, but they're a good sized band.
It can be done.
There's no minimum, and it's.
I've been talking about this for 10 years.
Behind the scenes stuff. Yeah.
I've been talking about it for a decade, and like the technology wasn't there, and even before COVID, it wasn't there. Yeah. I mean, to really do it right, you have to get away from the social media networks. You have to do it your own website, and there's just now starting to be plugins and things that you can do that will sync all of this shit together outside of Facebook, because everything available would link you right to Facebook or right to YouTube. Yeah. So you got to get away from all of that to make it truly successful. But, it's starting to happen.
Yeah, well, there's that saying, isn't there? There's that I can't remember who was talking about it, but it's better to sell 10,000 of something you own completely than sell 1 million of something you own nothing of. It's that classic. Signing to a major label, selling 5 million, and you make no money, whereas you sell 5,000, 10,000 by yourself, and you make 10 times more than the guy at the top who's quote unquote the top.
But this is what goes back to the real world.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
there's nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 million plays is equivalent to $300,
which is insane, isn't it?
in digital ones and zeros.
Yeah.
So think about how many millions of views you have to even make anything
wage.
substantial.
Yeah, it's just, and this is why these days musicians have to not only be musicians, they have to be content creators, they have to be brand ambassadors, they have to be blah 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 blah. All these multitude of things, and it's as again, we got ourselves into this situation. Unfortunately,
we just used the technology the wrong way.
Yeah. I guess, and in a lot of ways, musicians aren't generally into technology. So when something comes along, we don't necessarily know what to do with it, and then it spirals out of control. And hang on, this hasn't worked out for us as well as we thought it would.
Yeah, and then the ease of an audience, because now that's even becoming questionable. Because bots and all this other stuff.
Yeah, a true audience. Yeah, absolutely. And again, there's that whole, you can have however many thousands of followers, but they might only be following you because of one of your posts, not because of your entire breadth of they're not following you because of you. They're following you because of a couple of funny things you posted. Or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So it's such a crazy world, and I guess for you as well, living through the different phases of the industry. It must be. Is this an especially crazy time, do you find, for music?
I mean, it's a very creative time. I mean, if you look hard enough, a lot
more music, I guess.
If you look hard enough, you can find some really cool stuff. That's the thing.
If you can filter out the noise.
Yeah, and it's like anything else. Like if you want to be a YouTube star, you got to spend an absorbent amount of time trying to make that happen. And it's like anything else, it doesn't matter if you're going to school to become a doctor, or if you're doing social sciences, or if you're doing software creation and coding, whatever. Anything that you're going to put time into, a lot of time into, you can be successful doing. It's just, is there success to be had in the amount of hours that you're putting into something?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a drummer friend of mine. He likes to say that he's done it all 75%. And I say, well, that's because you always put 75% in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the thing, is as we know, especially I don't even think just in metal, but in music in general, to be successful, whatever successful means, there is not only the working for it, putting in the hours, the 10,000 hours, there's all the sacrifices that come with it. There's all this, like I with these last 2 years off, it's the first time since I can remember, since I was 17 when I joined Aborted, that I could actually say to my friends, yeah, I'll be there at your wedding because I'm at home, or I'm going to be around for my wife's birthday, or my mum got ill, so I could be around for her, which never would have happened before. And it's not just, it's all the stuff that comes with it as well, which some people, and that's fine, some people just wouldn't be able to do that on top of putting in the quote unquote hours into the practicing and blah blah blah. There's also all the sacrifice that comes with being in a band and being on tour and being, as we've talked about before, with your business and all that stuff as well.
Well, a lot of my experience being in bands, being in touring bands, has shown me that it's less about the band and more about escaping their life.
Interesting. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I know.
Like I have to run. The pressures of being at home with having to pay electric bill, or having a mortgage, or owning something, or a relationship strains, or whatever. Yeah. The tendency for most musicians is to run.
Yeah, true.
And that's something I became aware of like really early
Mm.
in doing all of this, and I never wanted music to be that for me.
Yeah, not.
You know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it like that hot. That's that. Never wanting to be off tour thing.
Right.
You see that a lot, don't you? A lot.
Yeah.
And I
Or
get it
you see
because
people
tour is
making
like
bad
a
decisions about their
mm,
bands, because of touring. Like
yeah.
there's
Bad
guys in
business
the
decisions,
band that says, "Oh,
absolutely.
we got to take everything we get, and we got to get out there, and we got to be
100%,
touring,
dude.
10 months a year, and blah 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 blah." blah.
100%.
You're
Yeah.
burning your audience out, and it has nothing to do with the
Yeah.
band.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
It's because you don't want to be at home and
right?
yeah, absolutely.
You don't want to. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
want to
true.
grow up. I'm a Toys R
Yeah.
Us kid.
It's
You know what I mean?
it's
Yeah.
absolutely, man. It's Peter Pan syndrome, isn't it? Yeah, I totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean there. That's something that I'd noticed, but I'd never really internalized until you pretty much just said it.
Right. I mean, that's most of the
And
music industry.
yeah, absolutely. And again, a lot of the time, it's the people that I know that have really, really struggled over the last 2 years because of COVID were those people.
Were those guys exactly?
I'm not gonna name any names, and everybody
And
can
dude,
do what they want. But
you could probably remember back in my forum days, and I was very vocal about this very thing. I was sitting at a table in Poland in October 2019
yeah,
with some very well-known drummers. We had done this festival over there, and there was a young drummer that was there. His parents came with him. He played the drum festival and everything.
Wow.
And they were asking advice to all the drummers, and everybody's telling them, "Oh, you can't give up. You got to practice. You got to play with the best people you want to." And it got to me, and I looked the kid dead in his eyes. I said, "Go to school. Learn something about coding, computers, or," I said, "what would happen just in the sheer chance that you couldn't play music? What, outside of, of course, we didn't know this was going to happen. But I would say, like, not to wish anything bad on anybody, but you could get in an automobile tomorrow and have somebody run a red light and put you in a wheelchair. So, like,
totally out of your control as well.
Just totally out of your control, And there was all these drummers, and everybody was like, "I could, like, why would you tell this kid this?" And I was just like, "Look, dude, do something. Think ahead. Like, if you can't play, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And then fast forward the next year, this kid's parents, they both quit their jobs to manage this kid because he got endorsed.
Oh my!
And he was doing clinics, and he was basically supporting the entire family.
Oh God!
Think about what that feels like right now.
No, Jesus Christ, that's insane.
And
wow. Yeah.
Every one of those drummers, I'm sure, somewhere in the middle of 2020, were hearing those words, like, "Do something else, dude."
Remember that thing Derek was saying that I was initially shocked at? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, the last 2 years has been kind of proof that we do not know what's around the corner.
No idea.
And it's only getting crazier by the day, right?
Dude.
God.
Oh man, you don't get me going.
Right, yeah. So let's. I'll bring it back to drums briefly. I don't want to keep you too long, man. I know you've probably got a very busy schedule.
I'm waiting on the guys. We're gonna jam tonight.
Oh, cool.
So I actually do have some friends that have so kind learned Serpent stuff. I mean, they all have their own careers and stuff and families and whatnot.
Yeah.
But we get together and we jam, and they help me stay in shape and whatnot, playing live, because it's different than playing the tracks. It just sucks, like.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's fun if I'm doing it for an audience.
There's no room vibe and atmosphere. Yeah, absolutely. And what, as far as as you say, keeping your chops up and stuff these days, what does practice look like for you, or what does not even practice? What does playing look like for you these days? Do you just kind of
I
play
play
what you
every
enjoy?
day.
Are you working on things? Yeah.
I play every day. I don't know if I'm like working. I was never that guy.
Yeah.
You know, like outside of playing with people, like every bit of learning on the drums that I did, I never practiced by myself really. There was one summer in my early 20s, like right before I joined Malevolent. I wasn't playing with anybody. Like all the guys in my band had moved away and got their own careers and stuff. And I was just by myself playing different things than I would normally actually playing. I listened to all types of different stuff growing up, but never really played any of it, you know. I started really getting into world music, like a lot of different African rhythms and Latin stuff and Indian music, Asian things, like just very non-Western. I kind of went that route with my listening, you know. But I did spend like 1 year, one summer and fall, you know, working on ostinatos and five or and the one thing that taught me was it's like I kind of learned that I didn't really want to learn anybody else's patterns.
Yeah.
You know, because I started realizing that there's things that each one of us, like if we were to sit down at a kit, like if you were to sit behind Terry Bozzio's kit, right? I'm absolutely 100% positive that if I gave you 15 minutes, you would be able to come up with something that was like multi-pedal ostinato that you could play over the top of.
Maybe more than 15 minutes.
No, seriously. It's almost something like immediately. Because your body, it automatically knows its muscle memory. So all you got to do sometimes is change the sound source.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so like when you have all of the stuff.
Kit setup too, as well. When you change your kit setup, but you're like, whoa, hang on. Weird ideas are coming out or something. Yeah.
Like that whole multi-pedal thing that I got known for.
I was going to mention,
I'm on our, I never worked on that. That was immediate. That was something I could do immediately because I wasn't trying to learn somebody's pattern. I was just trying, what can my body already do? Okay. This is easy. You know, and then capitalize on top of that. You know?
Yeah. And that goes back to, you know, as we were talking earlier, being unique and doing your own thing and not. I guess just learning someone else's part isn't ripping them off. It's, you know, I guess we all learn other people's parts to be inspired and to whatever. But I know what you mean. I totally understand what you mean. And so these days, or generally, then when you practice or play, is it normally with music, with tracks, with other people?
Yeah. Because I mean, like I said, I jam with these guys 2-3 times a week. So that keeps my chops up.
Cool, man.
I'm constantly recording and doing stuff for people, you know, online. Although I'm pretty selective about what I do. I like to keep it kind of, you know, high quality stuff and whatnot.
Stuff that you actually want to do as opposed to, and this this goes back to, you know, the job thing. If you had to do it for money, then you'd have to just be taking everything.
Right.
Instead of being able to select it. Yeah, that's cool, man. No, that's totally. Really cool. Yeah, nice. Yeah. Right, again, I don't want to keep you too long, but so right at the end of all my little podcast episodes, I do this I call it a quiz. It's not a quiz. It's a either or thing. So I give you the option between two things and you tell me what you prefer.
Okay.
I mean, hopefully it won't be too controversial either way.
We'll get canceled.
Cool. You good? Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that's going to happen at some point. But
it's the new craze.
Yeah, there you go. See, I'm sure we've already said something that will get us cancelled. So. Cool. Right. So, coffee or tea? Although I see you drinking, I assume that's coffee.
Yeah. Although I do like tea too.
Are you a tea drinker at all?
Yeah, I do like tea.
Okay. Any specific type of tea?
Black tea.
Okay. Nice.
I like a lot of chamomile, that kind of stuff for night.
Nice. No, yeah, relaxing. Coffee's for waking up, tea's for relaxing.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so chips or chocolate?
What kind of chips?
I don't know. What chips are you into?
No, well, here's the thing. I've cut out fried. Everything fried.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So what's
Well, all right. So
healthy chips?
the latest research, although
Yeah. Oh God,
I've been
it's
reading
gonna scare me probably.
controversial stuff about this, but something about frying.
This is
a
where
potato,
we get cancelled.
Yeah, something about frying a potato.
Yeah.
Causes carcinogens that can cause cancer.
Oh shit.
So, like when you look at the cancer rates around the world and where it's most prevalent, there's a lot of fried potato stuff in those areas. And so, but they're also saying that it's just coincidental and blah 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 blah. I don't take chances, you know.
Yeah.
I try to eat pretty
on that, but yeah,
healthy anyway. So, but I do love chocolate.
Okay, so if you were having a day where you forgot about all the studies, would it be chips or chocolate?
Probably chocolate.
Probably still chocolate. Yeah.
My wife bakes a good bit, so I'm used to having chocolate chip cookies and stuff. So.
Sweet tooth. Very good. Very good.
I limit it to
morning
2
or evening. What's that? Sorry.
I limit it to 2.
Wow, that's very good of you. I don't think I could. I'm not very good at limiting myself with sweet stuff.
Yeah.
Respect. Yeah. So, morning or evening?
I do love early morning.
Especially
I feel more productive
in Florida with the sun, with the sun coming up. Yeah, that must be nice.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
In the UK.
Buddy.
So yeah, morning.
Morning.
Okay, we go morning. Cool.
Early
okay,
morning.
So I think you may have already answered this one earlier, but beach, countryside, or city?
Definitely beach.
Yeah. Okay.
Can't get away from it.
Again, you may have already answered this one now that you eat healthier or drink healthier. Coke or Pepsi, or neither?
Neither.
You don't have to say either.
I have, dude. Haven't had
Have you ever been a Coke or Pepsi guy?
No.
Wow.
Dark cola. That's what I would always say.
Oh.
Okay. Dark cola, please.
Wow. Cool. Are you a water drinker generally?
Water, coffee.
Yeah.
Whiskey.
Wow. Respect. Nice, man. The trifecta.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so this one could be controversial. Slayer or Metallica? It's hard, isn't it? I mean, you don't have to choose. You can say pass, but
on just what has been accomplished, Metallica, hands down.
Absolutely. I
mean, dude, I remember hearing Ride the Lightning for the first time, and if you would have told me then that next to the Beatles that this band was going to be the biggest band in the world, I would have laughed you out of my house.
Yeah. Even as a fan.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? What they've become. Absolutely
it's truly incredible.
For a metal band. They are still a metal band.
Have you seen, what's it called? It's a Netflix thing. Just came out right when the pandemic hit. Through the Never.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
That's the film, right? That's the movie.
Yeah, it is like a movie. It's kind of like the story of this roadie. He's like a runner, a local runner, and he gets caught up in all kind of shit, doing shit while Metallica is playing because he wanted to watch the show. But dude, the production,
is it insane?
It is insane, dude. Dan, you have to watch it from a production aspect.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because I was listening to whenever it was James Hetfield on the Joe Rogan podcast, and at one point Joe says about he's like blah 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 something about Hawaii, and James is like, "Oh, I love Hawaii. We've got a house there."
Right.
And then like 10 minutes later, he's like, "Oh yeah, London." And then James is like, "Oh yeah, London. Yeah, I've got an apartment there." And then blah blah blah. And then it goes through, and they say multiple places. And James says, "Oh yeah, I've got a house there. I've got an apartment there. I've got a house there."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hang on. Oh yeah, no, that does make sense because they're the biggest band ever." But in my head, I was thinking, it's just James Hetfield from Metallica. They're just a metal band. But then when it just slowly dawned on me, oh shit, no, they're the biggest fucking band ever. So of course he has houses everywhere. But it's amazing, isn't it? As you say, it's a metal band. No one ever. I don't think anyone ever expected a metal band to be as big as Metallica are.
And like honestly, man, those guys as people. I mean, think about it. Like Lars took all of that heat back then.
Yeah.
It wasn't because of them, dude. They made their money because shortly after that, the industry crashed. You know what I mean? So
and they're still fine.
Yeah, because they made their money when you could do it. In the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it wasn't like he was looking out for them.
Yeah.
He was looking out for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, there's something to be said about that.
Everyone laughed at him. Yeah. No, absolutely. No, absolutely. You're totally right there. You're totally
called
right.
him greedy.
And, yeah.
This stuff.
Because I remember seeing I'm sure you saw it as well, that Newsted came out saying that within a couple of years of joining the band, he was already kind of set for life financially.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so everything else was just a bonus. So
he lives close by me.
Oh wow, cool. Yeah. Wow.
40 minutes.
But anyway, yeah, sorry. So yeah, Metallica are just the fucking they're amazing.
Yeah, killer.
Okay,
dude, they sound great, bro. I mean, every video they release, I mean, they sound so consistent.
True.
I mean,
true.
It's unlike anything I've ever seen any other band accomplish. I mean,
he gets so much shit, dude. I hate the shit that Lars gets. It really pisses me off. Like
he's great.
The drummer. Oh, he's a terrible drummer. Blah blah blah. Oh, but he's he changed the game,
dude. I would dare
change the game.
I would dare anybody to play the amount of drums that dude has played in his life. See how somebody else fare.
Oh, I know
how they fare doing
it. His age, how much they still tour, how long their set lists are, just that in itself.
Yeah, they play 2.5 hours a night.
Unbelievably impressive. I know. Do you know what I mean?
200 and something days a year. I mean, geez.
Unbelievable. Just that shit, All
right, so
never get shit ever.
If you haven't seen it, there is Fight Fire with Fire live from Daytona, like November 2021, something like that.
Oh shit! So really recent.
It's on YouTube. Check it out.
Wow. God.
Check it out.
That's going to be the first thing I do, and then I'm going to watch Through the Never.
Yeah.
It's gonna be Metallica night for me, I think.
Yeah. Lars plays the double bass, man. And it's mics.
Man, I fucking love Lars, dude.
Yes, mics. No triggers, it's all dude. Mics, no triggers. Actually, I think he may be triggering the snare. I know sometimes Mick will throw a trigger on his snare on outdoor gigs just to get that.
It's very consistent, isn't it? Not dynamically. I mean, the sound is always almost exactly.
It's a sample of his drum.
That makes sense.
But Through the Never, it's all mics, and man, it sounds ridiculous. It sounds great.
Wow.
Yep.
Dude, I love that guy. He's amazing. He really is. And again, he's not just the drummer. He arranges the songs.
Dude, they wouldn't be them without him.
Yep. Absolutely, man. So anyone who hates Lars, you can just fuck off.
Basically.
So this next one, this is coming from a person who knows nothing about snakes. So this was just one I threw in for you.
Oh, okay, good.
Cobra or Python?
Oh, Python for sure.
Yeah?
Python's not going to kill you.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you able to handle a cobra?
I've had them in the past. Ooh. Yeah. Jeez. Look, man,
is that a whole nother level of snake?
Just being a venomous snake, like that thing will kill you. It'll shut your respiratory down in 3.5 hours. I mean,
oh my God,
it's not worth it.
Just from one go, one bite.
It can, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I've known.
So it's just not worth having.
Everybody I know that keeps venomous, I don't know anybody who hasn't been bitten. You know, I have guys that have lost fingers, that have no mobility. God. You know, getting bit on their hands and stuff. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm good on all that.
Yeah.
Plus, venomous snakes aren't worth anything. They're
really?
Like most venomous snakes, even if they're morphs, are $100 to $500 a piece. They're not like.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I assumed they'd be more sought after just because they're so kind of badass, quote unquote.
Yeah, I mean, look, like a lot of the venomous snakes are some of the most beautiful animals in the world, but you know.
Wow, that's amazing. So
I'd rather
stick
play
with the pythons. Yeah, I was gonna say, have your hands. Yeah. Cool. Okay, couple more. Triggers or microphones? I guess I'm talking about bass drums here.
Yeah, mics.
Yeah, all the way.
I mean, look, I love triggers, and you need them for extreme
course.
metal. I mean, if you're going to be playing a million miles an hour, it makes it really easy for the sound guy. I would say if you're going to do it, please, everybody, use a sample of the drum you're playing.
Yeah, if you can. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you can with the TM2. It's $200. Get the thing.
True. Yeah.
And when you do a sample of your own drum, don't process it. Take it right from the microphone and make it for your sound guy the same way it would be if he's putting a mic in your drum. So he's still going to have to EQ it. He's still going to have to. What happens?
That's a great tip.
Is your kick drum, even if you're triggered, it becomes a part of your kit instead of being drums and triggers.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It'll make
That's a great tip. Is that what you do?
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
I always use a sample of the drum that I'm playing, even both drums.
Yeah, because of course, even though you try and get them tuned as close as possible,
they'll never sound the same. Your foot sounds different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, true. Absolutely. Yeah, of course. But I guess, do you prefer playing with mics generally?
Yeah.
If generally
overall
day-to-day.
Playing, yes. In extreme metal, I prefer playing with the triggers. Just I can monitor myself easier.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know,
it's part of the sound, I think, now as well, isn't it? It's part of the sound of extreme metal is triggered bass, especially over a certain tempo range.
Yeah, well, it's just the principle of putting a microphone in the cylinder and playing really fast. Yeah. It's like the physical dynamics of it are not good with the microphone, really.
Yeah. And the dynamic changes from slow to fast and all that stuff.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can get over some of that the same way you can with your hands, just consciously being aware of it. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's kind of like a needed thing. If you're playing over 230, go ahead, trigger it up.
It's going to be easier for everybody, including yourself. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Blast beat or groove?
How about blast beats that groove?
Yeah, there we go. I've never had that answer so far, so there we go. No, it makes a lot of sense. People don't talk about. I saw a T-shirt once that said, "Make blast beats groove again."
I mean, yeah,
that was amazing.
I mean,
because it's so true.
Yeah, totally. And people don't think about it. That's one of the things that the most commonly asked questions when I would do clinics is, how do you remember all of this? I'll say, well, it's the same thing as anything else. I mean, I don't know how this is going to sound. It'll probably be okay.
This is amazing. This is the first time on the podcast we've had live drumming, so this is amazing.
But if you had,
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So people don't realize that, like, you could play James Brown as a blast beat. It doesn't mean that the song gets faster because you spread it up. You sped it up.
Yeah.
You're just playing every note in a measure instead of leaving all of that out.
Yeah,
Right.
Which is essentially what ghost notes are, right? In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a way to fill that space up.
True.
I'm just filling all that space up. That's all.
And again, and this is why live metal can be so much more powerful than especially modern production metal, is because live it has that groove and that dynamics which has been sucked out of it a lot of the time. On the recording. So
totally.
Yeah, blast beats that groove. I like that. There we go. That's cool, man. Okay, cool. So last one, and then I promise I'll let you go because I've kept you for well over an hour and a half. I do apologize. But so I probably know the answer to this, but double pedal or 2 kick drums?
2 kicks.
Yeah, all the way.
I mean, look, I don't even own a double pedal. So if I'm not playing metal, I don't even use
two.
Yeah, I mean it's no reason for it really. No application for it.
Is that how you started as well?
Yeah.
2 bass drums. Yeah.
I had to borrow one from the middle school.
That's awesome.
And a pedal.
That's so cool.
And then I mowed enough lawns to eventually get myself a Ludwig kit. Double bass Ludwig kit.
Wow. That's cool. So that was your first proper kit, I guess, was a double bass Ludwig.
Well, my dad, I had gotten a drum kit early, like a CB700 or something. And then must have been for like my 8th or 9th birthday, he actually got me a Rogers kit.
Wow.
Like a top of the line.
Amazing.
Big R badge Rogers kit.
Yeah.
God, I still wish I had those drums. But I sold those. It's fucking stupid. And with my like lawnmower money, bought a Ludwig rocker kit with 224s, like 14, 15, 16, 18.
Power sizes.
Yeah, they're like that damn big. But yeah, so I was always kind of on. The Rogers kit didn't have 2 kicks, so that's why in middle school I was borrowing a bass drum from the band.
Yeah.
But yeah, funny.
Wow. And you've never looked back. But yeah, it is a totally different feel, isn't it, as well with 2? Because you've got sound coming from both sides of you as opposed to one side of you. There's the response of the drum head is completely different. There's so many benefits, I guess, as well.
Looks cooler.
It looks metal as fuck. Yeah.
I mean, I even go back to even like the big band days. You know, Cooper and all these guys, they were all playing 2 kicks.
Yeah, true.
Ed Shaughnessy.
Belson and stuff.
I mean, Buddy was one of the ones that didn't.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, he refused, I guess, right? He was he had his own.
Yeah.
I do what I do, and I don't do anything else. Because he couldn't even play matched grip, could he? I remember.
Oh no, he could play matched grip.
Oh, he could.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it was just for a bit of because he was a showman, wasn't he? There was a thing he was doing where he was basically saying match grip sucks, so I can't even play match grip.
Yeah.
Maybe it was I mean, he was one of the best ever, so I'm sure he could play.
Have you heard the audio clip of only the 2 bass drums?
No. Something else I need to Google when we go up here.
Buddy Rich, 2 bass drums, YouTube.
Wow.
It's just audio, but apparently to prove a point, he played a solo just on 2 kicks. And it's recorded.
Wow.
And it's pretty badass.
I mean, that guy didn't do anything that wasn't badass.
He was a tap dancer as a kid.
Absolutely.
So he
knew how to move those feet.
Man, I mean, he's playing full on like snare drum pieces. Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Sick.
Oh my God. Wow. I'm going to check that out.
Yep.
Jesus. God, dude, I've learned so much on this. There's so much takeaway from our conversation. Thank you.
Anytime, man.
No, cool. Yeah. So there we go. That's it, man. And thank you so much for taking the time out.
Dan, thank you.
To chat with me. It really is an honor and a pleasure to have you on, and it has been really good fun.
Good to finally meet.
Yes, absolutely. Well, finally, last story before I let you go. when I was playing for Aborted, I can't remember how long ago that was now, way too long ago. But
wasn't that 03 or so?
I can't even remember. No, 06 maybe.
Okay, maybe later. Yeah.
06.
I don't remember.
God, I can't even remember. It's terrible. Anyway, so we played a show somewhere in the States, probably Florida, and I remember meeting you in passing. You were in a bar with a bunch of other people. This was fucking years ago, and obviously I remembered because I was like, "Oh, it's Derek Roddy, amazing."
No shit.
But, yeah,
I wonder where that was at.
Technically, dude, again, it was so long ago, I can't even remember, and I think I was probably a bit drunk.
Oh wait, was that the? Were you playing? Yeah, you.
Yeah, we were playing. Yeah.
Tampa Metal Fest.
Maybe what year would that have been?
2005, I think. It was one of the last shows I did with Hate Eternal, so it could have been 2006.
Oh, sorry, no, you weren't playing. You were just there.
I was just there.
Yeah. And dude, I'm gonna have to Google that and figure out where that was as well. It was somewhere in the. I don't think it was Florida though. That's why it's weird. So, but you were just there in a bar, and I was like, hey, and you were with a bunch of other people. And so yeah, technically, we haven't really met.
Right.
But I kind of shook your hand for about a second, and yeah. So anyway, a random story, random tangent story.
I wonder if that was at the Culture Room. Who were you guys on tour with?
Again, I can't even remember.
Was it Cannibal, maybe?
Oh shit! Was it Cataclysm, maybe? Fuck, man, this is awful. I should have been more prepared for this, shouldn't I? Right, I'm gonna Google it, and then I'll send you a message when I figure out who it was, because it was well over 10-15 years ago.
Oh, right on.
And it was anyway, yes, so I'll finally let you go, but yes, thank you so much, and good to again meet you virtually.
Yeah. Keep in touch.
And yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure, and thank you so much. I'm planning to get this out within the next few days, if that's cool. So I'll just
perfect.
I'm sure you probably won't want to listen to it, but if you have any interest,
well, send me all the links, and I'll put it on all the social stuff.
Oh, thank you, man.
I'm just now starting to this last year or two since the pandemic. I've actually kind of gotten on it a little bit because I hate that shit.
But as you say, it's not real life, dude,
no,
is it? No. It's not real life. So absolutely, we're living the real life right now.
Yep.
So, but yes, again, have a good jam session, and I hope it all goes well.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, pleasure, man, and hope to speak again soon.
Yeah, man. Talk soon.
Awesome.